Shalom, this is Reb Yoseph Schreiber from Eretz Yisrael. This week's parsha is Parshas VaYaytsay, and in it, Yaakov goes to Haran, to his father-in-law, Laban, and he's running away from Esav. He arrives there with absolutely nothing. No money, just a stick to protect himself. And Lavan, after hearing what happened to him, that he was running away from Esav, Lavan says, "You can stay with me for a month." A gracious suggestion. And Yaakov, while he's there that month, works as a shepherd for Lavan, taking care of Lavan's flock, and he does a very good job. And Lavan then says, "Name your wage." And Yaakov has fallen in love with Rachel, Lavan's daughter, and he says, "I'll work for the hand of Rachel in marriage for 7 years." And Lavan promptly accepts that and cheerfully accepts that suggestion. When the 7 years are up, Lavan tricks Yaakov. He brings out Leah when he should be giving him Rachel. Probably Leah's in a burqa. Yaakov doesn't recognize that it's Leah until the next morning. And then he says to Lavan, "Why did you cheat me?" And Lavan gives him a flimsy answer. And he says, "Look, celebrate with this one, and after a week, marry Rachel, and you'll work for me another 7 years." Okay? In other words, the reason he tricked him was he saw he had a profitable enterprise, and he wanted to keep it going for as long as he could. This is a way to get him to work for another 7 years. Yaakov is capable of trickery himself, and in fact it's justified by heaven in that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives Yaakov a segula, a mystical way that he will have a very successful flock on his own, greater than what could be expected by nature. And Lavan would just have an ordinary flock. An ordinary natural labor that Yaakov would produce, that's what goes to Lavan. Lavan becomes jealous. Lavan is a greedy person. And Yaakov decides to run away. And his wives, Leah and Rachel, say to him, "Look, we're foreigners in our father's house, and whatever money we have, it's ours, okay? We don't have to let our father squander away that as well, okay?" And Yaakov runs, basically, while Lavan is busy, Yaakov steals away. When it's discovered, Lavan chases after Yaakov, and he gives him a bunch of smooth lines, and he ends by saying, "You acted foolishly." Literally, hiskalta asu. The word asu, though, literally spells out Esav, meaning you acted foolish with Esav. Okay? And from here, the comparison of the tricks, we see when is lying justified and when is it not. If you're dealing with someone who's a thief or a murderer and you're using the law as a shield, you're just simply protecting yourself, then it is entirely proper to lie. However, you cannot use the law, or trickery to defraud someone else. In other words, trick someone else into giving you something that is not rightfully yours. And even if it is rightfully yours, you at times have to follow the proper procedure. You have a mitzvah in the Chumash that a creditor who cannot just simply walk in someone's house and seize collateral in the event of a default. He has to ask the person, go to the door and say, give me the collateral, and the person brings it to him. Beis Din can go into his house, but an ordinary debtor has to ask the person. There's a proper way to do these things. In the case of Esav, the proper thing would have been to discuss the situation with the parents, with Yitzchak, with Esav, with Rivka, and see if you could come to an accommodation. In addition, when it comes to matters of honors, mitzvahs, who gets an aliyah in shul, or as an example, one should not quarrel about that. It's actually brought in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch that you have to just accept that even though it's you should have gotten the honor, and someone undeserving got it, you basically have to accept that. You shouldn't fight about that. It says in the Chumash, midavar sheker tirchak, a person should distance himself from a false thing. Then it continues that he shouldn't kill the person who is clean and that tzaddik, meaning that vindicated. In other words, if let's say the court finds someone in someone's favor based on a technicality or lack of evidence. The Chumash is saying basically you have to tolerate that, and it says, then it continues with a promise from heaven. It says that God says He will not vindicate a rasha, someone who's evil, or someone who's in the wrong. The idea is that God has a lot of messengers, in that God will ultimately right things that are unjust, and that you cannot always do this yourself. Sometimes you just have to trust on the hand of providence to do this thing. There are times when a person can lie for a person's benefit, to say that the bride is beautiful at the wedding even though she may be blind and lame. Or if someone bought something and they're showing it to you, you give them a compliment even though it may not be so pleasing. But if you think about it, basically they're asking for a compliment anyway. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov discusses truth in, among the other books, Sefer Amidos, and where he says basically that it's through truth that a person clings to Hashem and sees with the eye of flesh and blood the works of Hashem and the nature of God. He says also that someone who is very truthful will see the unity of God. In other words, he'll basically, from discord and many details, he'll see order and principles, and that ultimately that it's through truth that we bring the final redemption.